because of this passion, she's been able to build one of the few animal shelters here in Dar es Salaam, Every Living Thing. So please, let's welcome Brittany Hilton to the stage.
Okay. Hello? Okay, just making sure. Okay, my name is Brittany, and I am the founder of an animal shelter here called Every Living Thing. And one of the most common questions I often receive is, why Tanzania? A lot of people ask me, why are you here in Tanzania? Why do you have this not in Canada or anywhere else? And I truly do believe it could have been anywhere, but Tanzania chose me. I was a slightly neurotic child growing up, and I felt a lot of empathy towards animals, but also towards any injustices I saw. I spent a lot of my childhood crying over animals and feeling very small and hopeless when it came to their suffering. But one of the greatest pieces of advice I got was from my mother, who had to deal with me a lot when I was a child over these issues, and she always told me that there were power within my tears, that I could turn my tears into action. Obviously, as a small child, I didn't understand that, but as I grew up, I learned to realize that that was true. And it is very much true, because I still cry, but now I can do something about what makes me cry. So university, and when I finished my master's and I was about to go into law school, I took a 6-month internship with the Jane Goodall Institute here. It was supposed to be 6 months. I was supposed to return back to school, but I quickly became distracted by the cats and dogs living on the streets here in Dar es Salaam. When I arrived, it was 6 years ago, and there weren't any animal welfare organizations in Dar es Salaam helping these animals. So I quickly became the person that was helping those animals. I also was doing an internship, so I also had other duties I needed to fulfill for the Jane Goodall Institute. One of them was about wildlife conservation. We would go into classrooms with our Tanzanian counterparts, and we would talk about different issues concerning wildlife. One of them was anti-poaching of elephants. So one day when we were in a village, we were about to speak to the classroom about anti-poaching and conservation efforts with elephants, and there was a tiny little kitten that walked up to one of the school workers. It was really small. It should have been with its mother, and it was obviously crying for food. The kitten was smushed by the worker, and the kids around that worker laughed. There was a lot of laughter, and I immediately started to cry. I couldn't contain my tears. And then all of a sudden, what we were about to go speak about in that classroom didn't make sense to me anymore. I went back home to Dr. Jane's house, where I was living at the time, and I explained to her that I didn't believe that it would even make a difference if I went into that classroom and spoke to them about elephants, if we're not extending kindness and mercy to the smallest of creatures around us. And she agreed. She supported me, and before I knew it, I had turned her house into a small animal shelter, including medical, adoptions, visitors, and she was completely supportive of all of it. A few years later, we were able to raise enough funds and move out of her house, and now we have Every Living Thing, which is just around the corner, and I think some of you guys will be coming to visit us this weekend. We're really proud of where we are today. There's definitely a lot of ups and downs, and it's definitely a very big struggle. But I'm a very strong believer that if you can do something, if you have the ability within to do something, and you see an injustice, that you ought to do something about it. We tend to be bystanders in this world. We all tend to think about, oh, that's somebody else's problem. Somebody else will deal with that. But actually, we are those people. We are the people who are supposed to do something about that. So, to talk about a little bit about Every Living Thing, we have about 300 animals, 160 dogs. I think I have all the dogs now. I think I've successfully collected all of them from around this area. And we have over 100 cats. We've got some goats. We've got chickens. We've got guinea pigs, rabbits. We do a lot of school visits. And something that I never thought we would have is a TV show. we were visited by a producer that belongs to, or the owner actually, of a broadcasting network here called AISA. And he came with his small kid because his son had visited us with his classroom. And he went home and he told his father what we were doing, and his father wanted to see it for himself, and he came and he asked me if people know what we're doing, and I said I wasn't sure if they knew, but this is what we do. And he said, you need a TV show. So the next weekend they came and they started filming, and we finished our first season, and now we're on to our second season. The first season we were focused on our animal sanctuary and on the streets and different issues like guard dogs, animal training, the importance of spay and neutering. And for the second season, I didn't want to focus on us anymore. I wanted to go out there and find other people in Tanzania who are doing wonderful things with animals, with wildlife, domestic, livestock, anything. So that's where we're at today, which is something I never thought we would have here in Tanzania, and just goes to show that if you truly believe in something and you dedicate yourself to it, that great things happen. One of the biggest misperceptions that I had, and I'm sure many people have, is that Tanzanians are cruel to animals. I think that the situation in Tanzania is not unique to Tanzania. There's animal cruelty everywhere in the world. I'm from Canada, and I was on the board of the SPCA for many years, and I have definitely seen horrific things happen there. The only difference is that in Tanzania, we lack the resources available for these animals. And a lot of people in Tanzania are living in poverty. So they walk by one kitten, and they don't have money in their pocket to help it, nor do they even know where to go with this kitten. So after the 100th kitten you walk by, it's learned helplessness, and you become desensitized to what you're seeing. So I don't necessarily think that it's Tanzanians who are not kind towards animals, or they don't care about animals. I think that they lack the resources, because the majority of people who bring us animals are Tanzanians, and they do care, and they are very thankful that we're here, and we have a lot of Tanzanians who also adopt from us. So I wanted to answer questions from the audience. I wanted to keep my speech short. So if there's anybody out there who has any questions about what we're doing, please let me know. Has anyone visited our animal sanctuary here? Is it different to animal sanctuaries that you've visited elsewhere? What makes it different? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we don't like to turn away anything that comes to our door, and I also think it's wonderful for students and families when they're visiting us to see that you can have a relationship with a chicken, that you can have a relationship with a goat, that they're also sentient beings that require our care and attention. We also do things slightly differently here because of the space, also because of the climate, that we have good weather all year round. We're able to have the dogs outdoor. One of the things growing up that I didn't like about animal shelters, and I've been to a lot of animal shelters, is that animals were always alone. And I always thought just because they're rescued doesn't mean they have to be sad. And I don't know, deep down inside me, I didn't know I was going to have an animal sanctuary one day, but I knew that if I did, that the animals would not be sad. And that's something that we really strive towards at Every Living Thing, that the animals all have enough space, that they're not isolated, they live in packs, they're open, they're free. We never cage them away. We really try to make sure that they have once felt defeat in their life, and they don't need to feel that again. We don't overly concentrate on obedience training. We concentrate first on building their trust, socializing them, seeing their true personalities come out before we try to tell them to sit, stay, obey us. We want to see who they are. Pardon me?
After building your foundation here in Tanzania,
Mhm.
is there any other African countries you plan on going to and helping with their animals there?
Yeah, for sure. I would love to travel more around. I've been really focused in Dar es Salaam, and not till this TV show was I able to actually travel around Tanzania. But I would like to eventually take more of a director role instead of a managerial role and start to look for other places that could use our model. Because I do feel that we have something really special. I can see it in my staff. We have 21 staff members who just love and care for these animals. And you would think that, we would all get burned out and, need a lot more holidays, but we're just around so much love all the time. So I do think that we have something that's truly unique and we could share with other places, and I definitely would like to do that someday. Yep.
I was just wondering how you fund all the
Pardon me?
how do you fund everything?
So funding is a bit difficult here. You can't rely on donations, and grants that are available for in Tanzania are mostly concerned with, we are up against a lot of really worthy causes here. So unfortunately, dogs and cats, they're kind of at the bottom of the totem pole. So there aren't really enough grants available that deal with domestic animals. So we just have become creative. We have built different social enterprises around our NGO. So we do dog kenneling. When people are away on vacation, we offer a safe place for their animals to stay. That's actually where the majority of our funds come from. We offer pet-friendly fumigation. That was accidental. We were just researching ways to fumigate our own property that didn't ruin the ecosystem, that we didn't have to remove our animals constantly, and that we wouldn't see the bees fall to the floor or the geckos. And we stumbled upon a really wonderful product, and then we started to tell people who adopted about this product, and then they started asking us if we could come to fumigate, and then that's how it started. And now we have a pet-friendly fumigation business, which also brings in good funding for the animal shelter. We turn recycled wood into beautiful furniture. We have a full workshop at our sanctuary. We require the workshop because we're growing and we deal with a lot of rain, so we have to keep on building. So our workshop is fully staffed all year round, and they're also just really talented, and they're turning wonderful pieces of old wood into beautiful furniture that we sell. So we've become quite creative. You have to become creative, and I like the way that we do it, because it's a nice feeling to be self-sustaining, to know that we can feed these animals, and we're not always reliant on the generosity of the community, because you never know where the economy will go or where your supporters will be tomorrow. So it's a good feeling to become sustainable. We still have a long ways to go, though. Is anybody else? Yep.
Hi, also Canadian, lived in Tanzania for the last 3 years, and I've noticed a lot of fear from Tanzanian friends regarding when they see a dog or some animals.
Yeah.
I was thinking, if it's not yet in place in the project, in terms of sustainability, would it be the next step to train people to tame dogs or to treat cats? Or I don't know if you have this in your program already.
Yeah, there's definitely a cycle of fear and abuse that occurs. As small children, some Tanzanians are told to be wary of dogs, that they have rabies, that they could bite, they could attack. So if they don't behave, they'll send the dogs after them. So there is a sort of there is fear and panic around dogs in the community. And then, if a dog approaches a small child and they don't want that dog around, they pick up the nearest thing and they throw it. And it's not necessarily because they're barbaric. It's coming from a place of fear themselves. And what does that dog do? It'll either run away or it'll bark. And that barking will further scare that small child. And those children grow up to be adults who have never really built a relationship with animals. So when we bring classrooms to our center, it's really remarkable, because a lot of them in the beginning won't even get off the bus. They're too scared. So sometimes we'll go onto the bus with a small puppy, maybe it's bottle feeding, maybe a small kitten, but it's about giving them the opportunity to see them for themselves, that they can build a relationship with these beings, that they're not the scary creature that they were made out to be. And I think that through having schools visit us and through going into schools, and especially through our TV show, our TV show gets millions of viewers 3 times a week, that we definitely have built more of or fostered more empathy towards dogs and cats. The amount of phone calls that we receive is growing over the years. We see a change, a shift in the community. We have a lot of work to do still. Obviously, we can't reach everybody, but it's something. But there's definitely a cycle that happens. Yep.
So, oh my God. So how do you like check people who come to adopt the dogs and cats? How do you check them to make sure they don't like abuse or harm the animals?
Yeah, we have an adoption program, and we also have a fostering program. We have an adoption application process that everybody goes through. Currently, I'm the only one that does the adoption process with people, but it's quite casual. We just want to get to know them, want to get to know their habits with animals. There's a lot of first-time dog owners, which is completely okay, and we're there to help them through the process. We keep in touch with everybody who adopts as well. And one of the things that we've also done is that when we always try to make sure that they know that when they've adopted an animal, that if it doesn't work out, they can bring the animal back. Because the last thing that we want is that someone has brought in an animal or adopted an animal from us, they go home, for some reason it doesn't work. Either they live with that animal because they feel guilty and they keep that animal, but the animal's life isn't the best, or they pass it on, or they'll give the animal to somebody else without letting us know. So we always want to make sure that we don't carry judgment towards people, that they feel comfortable and confident to come back and tell us it didn't work out. We also try not to do same-day adoptions to avoid impulse adoptions. We don't really advertise around Christmas to try to avoid impulsive Christmas presents. We won't adopt to somebody if it's a present for a girlfriend. So we try our best to make sure that everywhere where they're going is somewhere that they will be for the next 15 lives, next 15 years. But we have a lot of conversation with the person who's about to adopt in a very friendly manner. It's not a very formal interview, but we're just getting to know them. Yep. Sometimes, yeah. We'll go to houses sometimes, definitely. Usually after, we'll go to their house to check it out. They'll usually send us photos. But through conversation, you can really garner a good feeling about somebody. And usually people are honest here. They'll tell me straight away, I'm looking for a guard dog. So there I can just tell them, we don't adopt as guard dogs, but I'll try to, instead of just being very crude about it and turning them away, we'll just explain to them why not, like why we don't adopt as guard dogs, and then invite them in, show them how free our animals are, show them that they're living in a really high quality standard, and that they're so happy and they have smiles on their faces, and let them draw the conclusion for themselves that why would you take a happy animal and go and put it in a small box behind your house? So we're trying to turn every opportunity into a learning opportunity, or into a conversation at least. Yep.
What advice would you give to a young person having a vision to build such a project to help small animals?
So I guess the biggest piece of advice I could say is to ignore other people's opinions. There were a lot of people who didn't want me to stay in Tanzania. I remember before I even got on the plane to come to Tanzania, my father and my stepmother, knowing that they couldn't take me anywhere without me finding a stray cat or dog everywhere we traveled, they said to me before I got on the plane, don't just go to Tanzania and rescue cats and dogs. Take this internship seriously. And I was like, okay, I will. But here I am 6 years later, and I have a sanctuary, and it works, and it's making a difference. So if I had listened to that and I had allowed other people to place restraints on me, I wouldn't be here. And obviously my parents are completely supportive now, but they couldn't see what was in my head back then, so it's difficult. So you kind of have to, block out the negative and concentrate on what you truly believe you can do. Anybody else? answered all the questions. Cool. All right, thank you for having me. It's been oh, one more? No? Do you have a question? Okay.
Hi, Brittany.
Hi, Blair.
I kind of wanted you to talk a little bit about the issues that are faced here, with animals faced here, and the things you're doing behind the scenes, because I know there's a lot happening, and maybe if you can kind of communicate what are the big issues around animal cruelty or animal rights and so on, and some of the other things you're doing to improve the situation.
I couldn't hear you, sorry.
So any of the things you're doing to improve the situation, but the big issues that animals are facing here in Dar es Salaam, and you know how you're tackling that, because I know it's a multitude of probably issues happening. Is that correct?
Sure.
Yeah.
So there are a few major areas of concern. I would say one of them that keeps me up at night is guard dogs. But that also, it comes from years of this cycle of fear and abuse happening. A lot of people believe that in order for a dog to successfully guard you at night, they should be locked away in a small hut in the back of their house, that they shouldn't see the sun, they shouldn't have interactions with people, and they should just, so for some of you that aren't from Tanzania, we do have guard dogs here. People keep them in the back of their homes, and they only let them out at sundown. So these dogs don't socialize with people, and they're taken right from puppies, and they just live their lives in small houses alone. And then at nighttime when they go out, they're confused. They're confused and they bark. And one of the biggest things that we're always trying to explain to people is that, those dogs are not actually guarding the house. They're not guarding the people. They're protecting themselves, and they're confused and they're anxious. A lot of people get bitten by their own guard dogs. We have a lot of guard dogs that show up at our gate, anonymously. They just show up at the night. They're German Shepherds or larger breed dogs that just arrive. So you know that people aren't really building a relationship with these dogs because they haven't built a relationship. They're valueless to them. They don't care. They'll throw them away. When they feel that they no longer have control over these dogs, or maybe they want a newer small puppy. The guard dog epidemic here is a real concern. But I do hope that through our TV show and through more and more awareness and more opportunities for Tanzanians to get to know a dog, that the next generation of people won't feel the need to keep dogs in their backyard. When they come to our center and they see that dogs are there and that they're free and they're roaming, the first things that somebody will say to us is, can you put the dogs away? And then we'll let them know, no, like this is their home. This is where they live, but it's okay. They're not going to bite you. Just walk up to them, sit down, pet them. So just even that is making a difference for people, because they often ask us, so if I bring this dog home, it can just roam around my property? It doesn't seem like a really large thing, but there are probably millions of dogs that are suffering in small boxes in this heat at the back of people's properties. Another large thing that's happening here is dog breeding. We have a lot of dog breeding that's unregulated in Tanzania, and it's seen as a very quick and easy way to make money, and it's adding to the pressure that's put on our animal sanctuary as well. Dog breeders are breeding at a very fast rate. They're selling dogs to just anybody who will buy, and then those people maybe are making impulsive decisions. A few weeks later, they don't want it. It gets dropped off at our shelter. So that's putting a really large burden on our shelter as well. So we try to explain the importance of spay neutering your animals, especially with cats. Accidental births that are happening at a high rate with cats around this city is alarming. Trying to think of other animal concerns I can talk about. Abuse is high, but it's more curiosity. I would say it's more small children who are curious about animals, but don't have the guidance to shape them into caring for them nicely. As small children, you want to poke something or press it or pick it up in a certain way, and unless the parents are there to tell them, like, no, calm down, respect it. It's a living being. But I think a lot of small kids are just left to do what they want with these small animals, and in turn their ears get cut off or they put sticks in their bums. Sorry, but that does happen. So, and if nobody's there to correct those behaviors, and those young kids grow up and they haven't really built a bond or had a situation where they've been able to feel any sort of empathy. But saying that, we do have a lot of adults that come to our center who change their minds. A lot of teachers from these local schools that come, who end up in tears, who hold a puppy for the first time. We give them a bottle, they'll feed the baby, who share a special moment, and I think the ripple effect is greater than we'll ever even know. It's hard to know what the actual ripple effect is, but I know that, from these small situations where they're holding a baby puppy or a baby kitten, or for the first time ever they've allowed a dog to smell them and they've pet it, that has a really long-lasting effect, and they've then become ambassadors, not for every living thing, but for animals. Yep.
I just wanted to ask, what's the rescue process in which an animal is brought into the shelter? What's the rescue process of an animal being brought into the shelter?
The rescue process? There's definitely no shortage of animals coming to our center. We're lucky enough that the community does most of the work for us. Now that people know where we are, they know that if they see an animal suffering, that they can take it. And they can take it and they can bring it to us, so they're not stuck with it. I think in the past, people were a little more unwilling to help animals that they saw suffering because they thought they would have to bring it home. It would be stuck with them forever. They would have the burden of caring for this animal for a long time. But now that they know that we're there, they know that they can quickly take this animal away from danger and bring it to us. We have a team that will go out and rescue if needed. And we also have a lot of wonderful people in the community that stand behind us and will offer an animal a night to stay if they need to, or fostering. We have a veterinary clinic as well, so it's also a drop-off point for people. Yep.
Is there a culture of dogfighting in Dar?
Thank goodness,
Gambling?
not that I know of. No, that's one of my biggest fears. We don't have dog fighting in Tanzania that I know of. In Canada, we had a lot of dog fighting. I just visited South Africa, and I know that there's a lot of dog fighting there. But in Tanzania, we don't see dog fighting. No, I'm really thankful for that. That would really turn things upside down for us. We did see a while ago. We did see that they did some chicken fights before they would put the players out into the field. But we went and spoke to the organizers, and they quickly stopped that. So we're thankful. Anybody else? Yep.
How do you take care of animals in need of medical attention?
I couldn't hear you.
How do you take care of animals in need of medical attention?
In what?
In need of medical care.
Oh, in need of medical care. It used to be quite difficult for us because we were at the mercy of only 2 veterinary clinics that were in Dar es Salaam. We were the veterinary clinic's biggest client, having 300 animals. So when the owners left the country, they also happened to be a really large supporter to us. They actually just ended up selling us the clinic for the same price of our medical bills. So now we have a veterinary clinic, and the veterinary clinic's mission is to support our animal rescue organizations. So through the sales, through offering services to the public, we're able to then offer our own animals the medical care they need. And it's extremely important to have a good medical team. Also spay neutering. We do spay neuter operations every day, sometimes 5 a day. We also have a very active TNR program. So that the cats that are living on the streets, that are generations removed from humans, that are feral, we'll pick them up, spay neuter them, and then put them right back out on the streets. And we also offer the same to the community. So if somebody has cats living in their backyard, they also have access to that program at the veterinary clinic. But medical is still a challenge. There's still a lot of medicines that we can't get here in Tanzania, but it's much more under control now than it was before. Any other questions? Yep, in the back.
Do you have a volunteer program, and if so, what is it?
Yep, we do accept volunteers. It's a bit difficult to accept short-term volunteers because there's a lot of training that is involved. We have a lot of protocols that we have to follow. We have a lot of aggressive dogs that come in as well. We don't see rabies very often, but we do see rabies, so we always have to be careful of rabies as well. And we always want to make sure that we're not putting somebody in an uncomfortable situation as well. So we do have a volunteer program. You should be 16 years old, older, or under the supervision of your parents. But generally, volunteers will just get in touch with us via email. And there's also many different ways to volunteer. Volunteering doesn't always necessarily mean like physically at our shelter cleaning poo. But we always need help at fundraisers, at stalls selling things, helping us with our social media. We have a group of volunteers right now who come every Saturday, and they just take photos. They just take really cute, awesome photos for us that help us get our animals adopted. And that's I can't even tell you how big of a help that is for us to just have great photos of our animals. One of the biggest things us volunteers do as well is just hang out and spend time with our animals. We want them to feel loved, to go for walks with them, to spend time with them, even take a nap under a tree. We want these animals to feel as comfortable and as close to being in a home environment as possible. Any other questions? Okay. So I guess in closing, to volunteer, you email us. And we take it from there. Thank you. Oh, one more question. Oh. I can't hear you. Oh.
I'm saying it's not really a question. I'm just saying I also work with animals, so it's great to say you're doing an amazing thing, and yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah. I couldn't hear you, sorry.
I'm saying
Yeah.
it's not a question, but I also work with animals, so I think you're doing an amazing thing.
Thank you. Thanks.
So a huge thank you to Brittany for helping share a wonderful message. Right now, okay, I lost my phone, but in about 5 minutes, I'm pretty sure lunch is gonna be ready. So if you guys could still here for maybe like 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll call you over once